Broadcast is live.
How
Happy
you doing,
April.
brother? What's happening?
Happy April to everyone.
I can't believe we're already going into the fourth month of the year. That was pretty quick. With so much
Q1
happening.
is history.
Pardon?
Q1 is history.
That's it. And the weather's changing here in Toronto. Yesterday was a beautiful 12, 13 degree weather. It's funny, eh? When it's 10 to 12 degrees, it feels like it's 30 when you're going into spring because you've been waiting for it for so long. I saw so many people in shorts yesterday. It was crazy. It's such a nice sight to see, that's for sure. But there's a lot been happening in the real estate side of things. And so welcome to everybody. Welcome to the Brunch with REC Jas and Simeon edition. And I emphasize the Jas and Simeon edition because as most of you know, but a lot of new people come into our world on a weekly basis. You might not know that we also have another segment that runs every other Sunday, which is known as our Real Stories segment. And we started this probably about early 2022 with none other than our director of real estate investment coaching, Tyler Walburn. And not that he needs more of an ego push because his head's quite big. And so it takes a little while to get him into these doors, into his office. But we've been getting a lot of amazing feedback from you, the viewers, about the fact that just having some people on who are actually going through the process of investing into real estate, telling their story, even if they're not going through it currently, but maybe they have 1 door, 8 doors, 62 doors, but just going through the process, right? And so I implore everyone, as you're watching live right now on YouTube, and moving forward, we will also be live definitely on YouTube and Facebook at the same time. But if you're on YouTube right now, or if you're maybe watching the recording, just scroll down into REC Canada's playlist, guys. All of our previous brunches are there. All of our real story segments are there. And we've always, sarcastically said it when we were starting, but now it's really panned out the way that we wanted to. And what I mean by that is that everything that we've been talking about when it comes to stats and what might happen, not that myself or Simos or Tyler or anybody really is Nostradamus. We can't forecast what's going to happen in the market, but we can look back at history and say, okay, here's some things that have happened in the past. Here's where we might see the market go. Here's where you might be able to find some compelling buying opportunities as a home buyer, an investor, or even what you might need to know from a seller's perspective. And so go back, watch them, and call us out. Say, hey, Jas, you were wrong when you were talking about the fact of XYZ. Simeon, which he's wrong way more than I am, call him out. Like, you know what, Simos, what you said in February of 2021, well, just to tell you, it didn't pan out like that. We've been doing these brunches. Brother, it's crazy. Like you said, April, and how fast the year's gone. But do you know we've been doing this now for coming up to 3 years? Like
Yep.
This brunch on YouTube and Facebook. We've been doing this for 3 years. The first weekend of lockdown, you and I figured out, oh my God, we gotta like somebody, we need to speak to somebody. Our wives at home are not listening to us. God knows our leadership team doesn't really listen to us, the Lauras and the Bobbies of the world. We're falling on deaf ears because it's been so long, but it's been a long ride.
Why does everybody gotta hate so much? Why does everybody gotta hate so much?
Well, they gotta hate. They have a little bit of hate for the Indian and the Greek, and the fact that we're two bald guys as well. But how crazy is that, brother? 3 years.
It's 3 years, and it's been obviously, well, to me anyways, it's been the best move we've ever made. We've never been more connected to our audience and to our clients and to our friends from a real estate perspective, and we've never been more connected to, as a result of it, it forces us to stay always kind of on top of our game with what's happening, with what we can do to solve for the market conditions as they evolve, whether up or down. It's as big of a challenge going up as it is going down. It's the exact same thing because you have to predict. Real estate investing is not checkers, it's chess. So when your whole life evolves around a game of chess, it gets pretty interesting, and it gets and all times we're very tired, especially at the volume that we transact at. and the kind of gravity of the situation, always having such a huge responsibility to our clients. So anyways, this show has really done that for me, and I know it's done it for you, but it's been the best thing we've ever done.
I know you have like some new articles that have come out, some announcements that have come out through the budget that was just announced at sometime this week. And we're definitely going to touch on that and give our commentary on it. But you mentioned something, and I thought, why don't we just start there? You said like, the market going up and the market going down. And I think the question that a lot of people are asking and wondering, have we hit the bottom? Right? Have we hit the bottom of the market? Is this the time now that we're going to start to see prices go up? Generally, when Simeon and I do, I don't know why I'm calling you Simeon all of a sudden. Oh, it's because it's the name on your right underneath your picture. As a lot of you know, I call him Simo sometimes. Simos, a lot of people are wondering, like, okay, is now the time, right? So why don't we just touch on that, brother? Like, what's your thoughts on what's happening in the market right now, boots to the ground, because I definitely have some thoughts about it as well.
Yeah, so the proverbial bottom, as we want to call it, because that's not a real term. It's not real, first and foremost. But
it's real on Instagram and on YouTube. And I've been told if it didn't happen on YouTube or Instagram, it never happened.
Okay, so we're on YouTube now, so it's happening.
Exactly. Like, like that's the clickbait for videos, right? The market has crashed, or the market is crashing, and people go crazy.
So that's what it is. So the market. So if we want to talk about the proverbial top or bottom, we hit that top last February when the average price was the highest. But that's also not how we measure things, because there's underlying factors like interest rates and everything else. So the price in itself hit the top February 22, because that's history. And already we have seen a shift in pricing upwards. We don't have the March statistics yet. They probably come out Monday or Tuesday. And very unfortunate that our timing for our show is 3 days before. But regardless, maybe we'll do a quick special edition when they come out next week. Let's see how it goes.
I like that.
Only because it's so timely. So when people say, have we hit the bottom? If you're wondering if the average price of real estate is what you're using as a KPI, as an index, if that's your gauge for top and bottom of market, we've already hit the bottom, because prices have already gone up a sliver. So then there's an established bottom. I don't feel that is true, meaning the bottom is different for different people. If you have to renew your mortgage, forget buying real estate. If you have to renew your mortgage today, and the last mortgage you had was at 2%, and you're going to 6% right now, you're hitting the bottom, because your entire life just got doubled the expense. You went from $3,000 a month to $5,000 a month. You went from $2,000 to $4,000. It's significant. So what I want to see, and what I want to see people feel, that's what's important. Nonsense on headlines and then reading the article, and it's like two different worlds, because reporters don't lie. The headlines mislead. Do you see what I'm saying? If the articles always have decent information in them, but it's the headline that creates this feeling of in the nonsense. Okay, all I want to see is educated and calm clients, consumers, who understand that the situation today cannot be resolved by interest rates. All these things that are happening have nothing to do with the market going down. The fundamentals of the Canadian real estate market are extremely skewed to the benefit of the seller for the next decade. Forget the next year. If they didn't bring another immigrant in today, immigrants are leaving because they come here and they felt cheated. There is no housing for them. There is no any infrastructure for them. So they thought they were going to come here to get this, and they're coming here and finding out something else. That they have to pay $1.5 million for a home. There's no affordability. There is none of it. And there won't be. Because we don't have a plan. So speaking to that plan, the government has taken a step that we'll talk about in 2 minutes. Some very big news for the first-time home buyer in Canada. Very, very big news coming. So for those who haven't heard them, you need to really pay attention. But have we hit the bottom? The answer is, in my opinion, we are going into a very anticipated spring market. A lot of people did not make their move over the winter, over the late winter, because the last couple of months people are itching. We have seen tremendous amount of activity ramp up. Our agents are on showings literally every single day, all night. So we are seeing activity ramp up. When activity ramps up, the result is the multiple offers that we're seeing all over the city because there is no inventory and we have 70,000 agents ripping around the city trying to put deals together. So
well, that's what, yeah. Like once you start, for me, anyways, what one indicator is once we start to see more and more consistent multiple offers happen, and to take a look at an area like I'm right now at our headquarters at Don Mills and Lawrence. So that's essentially right at the border of what used to be known as North York and Scarborough. Literally on the east side of me is Scarborough, and on the west side is North York. And what we're starting to see in Scarborough and going into Pickering and even into Ajax, and then on the west side, you're starting to see it pick up again in terms of multiple offers. Bless you. In terms of Brampton, as well as certain pockets of Mississauga, which is on a nightly basis. We're starting to see multiple offers. And that means that for every home, there was one on Friday, or Thursday night, sorry, on our team. There was, I think it was 62 offers. And so one person gets it. But what do you think happens with the other 61 people that went home and lost that night, right? Some of them say, forget this, I'm not going back into the market, but majority of them, I'm going to say as high as 80 to 85% of them, are not kicking tires. They're not just trying to see what they can get a home for. They actually need to either upsize into a bigger home or possibly downsize because they might be empty nesters. They actually need a home. So they're going to go back out again the next night or the night after when a new listing comes up. And so the word that you used was inventory, and that's been the metric that we've always looked at to say, okay, how many homes are actually hitting the market? And then based on the previous month's sales, what does this look like? And mid-January to end of January was essentially the height in the last 3 to 5 years. Majority of markets, Brampton, Durham, and Mississauga, and in Toronto. You saw it in Richmond Hill as well, Markham, where you started to see the months of inventory creep up to 3 months. But last month, when we did our brunch, which would have been essentially February stats, we saw it go back to a month and a half. And that's why we're starting to see these multiple offers. Also understand, for everybody who's watching, the slow January this year, a lot of it had to do with the fact that people didn't go back to work and to school until like essentially the second week of January, where it's usually the first week of January. So that pushed everything back as well, along with the fact that we were waiting to hear what was going to happen on the 25th of January in terms of the Bank of Canada's announcement. They did increase it at that time, but the last announcement in early March was them not making a change. All indications are that on April 12th, the next announcement that's going to be happening, it happens around 9:30 in the morning, will be that there won't be another change again. What does that mean? Well, we've already started to see the effects on the bond rates, and what that means is that you see a decrease generally in fixed mortgage rates, which we've already seen a lot of banks start to bring down the fixed rate compared to
it's down 50 basis points across the board.
There you go, right? And so again, now the conversations at home start to change. Honey, they're not making changes. We did need to move. Let's start looking. And that brings me to another point. On April 12th, coincidentally, we and I should probably say on purpose, on April 12th in the morning will be the new announcement that comes out through the Bank of Canada. But for all of our friends, family, and the REC Nation that is in the Greater Toronto area, especially the ones we have not seen in person either ever or just in a very long time, we will be doing an in-person event. Now our office and our boardroom holds about 50.
The event is the 20th. Sorry, Jas. The event's the 20th, not the 12th.
The event's on the 20th. Yeah, it was originally on the 12th, but we had to make some changes. So it's on April 20th. We have already about 40 people registered because you should have, if you're an REC insider, you would have received an email. But I got something to tell everybody. Only 70% of people show up because they forget that they even registered for the event. And so big shout out to Nikki, who's controlling our ones and twos in the back end there. You'll see a link on our screen right now, reccanada.com/events. It's an in-person event for our GTA community. All you got to do there is register. You're more than welcome to bring a friend. We'll have some wine. We'll have some cheese. We'll get to meet each other in person. But we're also going to be bringing in a very, very special guest, someone that our community loves to hear from. It's none other than Mr. Christopher Slidham, who him and his family have been involved in creating generational wealth for them in real estate, and thousands, I mean thousands of investors for the last 5 decades. And so when he comes and does a talk, a lot of you have heard him in this type of setting in a brunch. I think it's actually the first time in 13 years we're bringing him in person, and a lot of that is because of the feedback from you guys who are watching. So go to reccanada.com/events, register for April 20th, and come in person, ask your questions. We always do a live Q&A, and I think the best part of our events, and this is feedback from the last 2 we did in March, seems like people stayed for another hour and a half. We joked with them and told them that they weren't allowed to leave after the formal kind of presentation and formal talk. And out of that, 5 people met each other for the first time and are either they completed a deal together, like literally because they met that day in person, or they're in the process of talking about doing a joint venture. You hear us scream this from the rooftop since day one. The main reason we've been building this community for the last almost 2 decades, next year will be 2 decades that we've been doing, that we've been in the business, is because, look, we want to try to help everyone, but we can't. We're not perfect. And so we wanted to have you as a viewer meet other investors. And what we've been screaming from the rooftops is that the real estate investing community is by far, in my opinion, the most giving and sharing community, and come find out for yourself by coming in person. But
so this is our version of a meetup. Like what we said at the beginning, why we asked people to stay, is if you came here just for us, that's not the best use of your time. It's just not.
Yeah.
Like we're going to give you everything we know. The true power, just like any other meetup, just like any other community, lies in its community. The 2 people in the front of the room put the show on the road. We made it happen. We picked a date. We chose it. We told you, you came. But if you're going to be there, the true power lies with collaborating with the room. Whether you shared your idea and you saved 4 different families from disaster because you shared what happened to you and how you faced it, or whether you found your dream business partner because you're both aligned in the same vision, that's the true power for real. And because I've witnessed it my entire career with this handsome young man, Mr. Jas Takkar, and with our mentor, and with the thousands of investors that we've done deals with, I'm telling you, the true power lies in the room. Be there. There is nothing that you can't do when you find the right people and put them beside you.
And yeah, man, there's like, we'll have mortgage brokers there that are part of our community, real estate lawyers, and obviously us, and our whole team is there. And then you have someone like Christopher Slidham, who really is one of the most sought after speakers when it comes to the stats and drilling down and talking about history. I mean, Simos and I have been at this for 20 years. But this guy's been at it for 5 decades. So he's seen the ups and downs. He's seen where some opportunity lies. He sits on some of the biggest boards when it comes to real estate investment trusts. And so his vast knowledge, and more importantly, his experience is something that I highly recommend everybody who's in the Greater Toronto area to come in. So let's spend the next 10-15 minutes, Simos, because for everybody, we are going to rapid fire through some news and some announcements. We do need to cut our Brunch with REC short. Usually we're about an hour, but we're going to go for another 15 minutes, just kind of going through everything. I'll leave it up to you to get started, Simos.
Yeah, so I think the biggest one that I wanted to touch on was kind of that conversation around the bottom, which we covered. Second up, the biggest news right now is the first-time home buyers saving plan, like a retirement savings plan. Canada is introducing the first-time home buyer saving plan, where you're going to be able to contribute to a fund that's going to count towards your taxable income. So let's say you make $75,000, you take $10,000 of that and you put it in this account, you're only going to get taxed on 65, exactly like an RSP. And it acts like a TFSA, meaning you can withdraw it at any given time, according to the limitations, of course, of what's usable and not, to buy your home. So it's a complex product. It's going to be boiled down and simmered to an easy to understand description, but this was supposed to roll out on April 1st. They wanted to roll it out for Q2. And I was telling Jas, like classic Canadiana, it was just an April Fool's joke. It didn't happen. The banks were not ready, not even close, actually, because they have to be synced up with CRA. So it is a huge technological play. It needs infrastructure. So they're building that out. All 6 majors are taking it, as well as Equitable and Desjardins, I believe. Or no, EQ. EQ and Desjardins are the other 2. So 8 banks are participating, which represent 95% of Canadian bank accounts, more than likely. So it is going to be widely adopted. They do anticipate the program to be extremely popular, meaning there's not going to be a young Canadian that's not going to put a couple of dollars to the side. And the truth of the matter is, because we keep talking about this, like this whole mentality that Canadians feel it's a right to own property, it is unique to Canada. The home ownership percentage in Canada is higher than anywhere else. It's unbelievable, actually. And it is, I think it's because most people who have the gall to leave home, wherever home may be, Turkey, Greece, Italy, India, China, I don't care where you're from, but if you had the gall to leave home to come here, more than likely you're also the type of person that needs to own their piece of land that they sit on. You're a control, you take control of your destiny. You're not going to, so it's that those attributes of immigrants. This country is made of immigrants. Literally every single person on this land is an immigrant. Every single person on this land, save and except our Indigenous. But that, I think, is why home ownership is so big here. And this program is going to finally allow us to contribute into an asset class that the government knows is extremely problematic for many other reasons. So the dream of home ownership was fading away, because if you want to tell a 17-year-old that a house is 1.6 and they're going to work at $18 an hour, it doesn't take a genius to know that it's never going to happen for you, ever. Never.
Well, unless you start to look at some other strategies as well, right? If you start to think of, and the kids nowadays call it house hacking, for example, right? But our parents, it was buy a home with a basement apartment and rent out that basement apartment, right? And what I would strongly advise that 18, 19, 22, 24-year-old is stomach the fact that you might need to live in the basement and rent out the upstairs, right? And I think another strategy that you and I know very, very well and help thousands of purchasers get in, and majority of them are investors, but we have a lot of people at that age group of 25, 26 that use the strategy of purchasing a pre-construction condo, right? Because then they don't need to put all that down payment at once. And I think that's huge. Like, even because sometimes we've done this so many times, we gloss over that, right? The fact that you can and you're forced, let me rephrase, the fact that you're forced to come up with the down payment. I mean, we all need accountability in one way or the other, right? Like, God knows, maybe me and you need a little bit more accountability in what we put into our mouths, right? But a lot of people need accountability when it comes to their finances, and because it's tough. But what happens with a pre-construction condo is the fact that in 6 months, once you purchase it, you put down 5%, call that on average $30,000, and then you're forced to put another 30,000 down. Sometimes it's 6 months, sometimes it's 3 months, sometimes it's a year, and then you got to do that again in 2 years from the time that you purchased it, and then once more, most of the time, like 3 to 4 years from the time you purchased it. It makes you very, very accountable, and you don't go spend money on what some other 23 to 28-year-olds might think is an actual asset, i.e. like a car, right? And I'm not here to tell you that you shouldn't take vacations and all that. Like, do what kind of keeps you excited. But I can tell you that and I've seen it now for hundreds of people, the fact that they were so glad that they made that first purchase into a pre-construction condo because they had to put the money down.
And now they're in the market.
Exactly. Right. And they bought it. Even, like, take today as an example, let alone, because I mean, there's not much that you can do. You can't do anything about going back now, right? But we have people who purchased their first ones at like 400 grand and it's worth 750 now. Forget all that. Let's take today's value at 600,000 on average. And so obviously you got to come up with $120,000 down over a 4-year period. You could do that yourself. You could partner up with mom and dad, right? Like our very own VP, just to get her first one. She did that. And I think we pay her too much anyways, but she was still smart enough to say,
I bet she's in the room. I bet she's
around
in the
here.
room.
She's around here somewhere. The joke's not as good as when the person's not here, obviously. You know what I mean? Or you meet with another 27-year-old and say, look, man, like, I'm not going to be able to come up with the full 30 right now in 30 days. I got 15. Can you come up with 15,000? All the, like, how do you get it? How do you get both on title? And those are just small logistical things that I guarantee you can be taken care of. But go.
So I'll tell you, Jas, I think we're going to see a big evolution in real estate. And I think the next, and it's already happening in the States, there's the co-living. Meaning that they're creating super buildings now with tremendously luxurious and evolved amenities. But the housing itself, so let's call it, I'm not going to compare it to student housing because it's not, and people should look into it. Maybe we'll bring on Graybrook.
Didn't our friends at Graybrook do something?
Yes. Okay. Yes. So it's called Society. And if you look at the concept, it's just absolutely genius.
So me and you renting out not renting out. Me and you live in like a
I'm buying my own little space, but like my space includes access to. So what you do, like, I don't want to make fun of Instagram and a new generation. Every generation was the worst one ever, and the one before us was the best one ever. Just like we feel now when we see and laugh at the kids. Yeah. Trust me, they're laughing at us just as much.
Well, and I have 2 older brothers. I mean, you're the oldest in your family, but I have 2 older brothers that still tell me like that our generation was lazy. Yada yada. You hear that shit all the time. I get it.
So it's always the same. So all I'm getting at is it provides the young person in 2023 the luxuries and amenities that their life demands now. Meaning the young professional today has so much more to do than the professional that we were exactly 15 or 20 years ago, because there's 8 more apps. Work has 8 more things. There is no time in the day. So dry cleaning, Uber, Uber Eats, all these things are built into the building. Like, it's designed for the young professional who does not go to Lowe's to get the wood to fix the fence. Amazon drops off the packages. Like that, the whole thing is
Convenience.
coming together. Convenience and speed. And the housing is priced because you have a room, or so you can either share a 4-bedroom unit, a 2-bedroom unit, you can have your own. But your own is going to be very small. So the footprint is small because you're never in the unit. You sleep in your unit.
Got it.
So you're using the building, and now you're dispersing the expense of those amenities and of life amongst 1,000 people.
Yeah, I like that idea. Like, I don't know.
So affordability comes in, and lifestyle is even more than you ever had.
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
Yeah, no, I want to look into it. I remember, I think this was like maybe 3 years ago, pre-COVID, or maybe like first year of COVID, that Graybrook was coming out with it. And I just haven't seen anything, but I definitely love the idea because it completely makes sense. I mean, I'm 41, and I want to probably do more. I probably do use those apps more than the average 41-year-old for sure. But I like the convenience, man. And so, let alone, I'm thinking about my 19-year-old niece, who probably does all of her ordering and for things through Amazon. Like, who goes to the store? I mean, I shouldn't say who goes to the store, because a lot of people do still, but I mean, it's definitely shifting towards there. And that's another great, indicator that even our own city of downtown Toronto is really a renter city now, right? And without products like this, it's just going to continue more and more to be a renter city, which is fantastic for investors, because you're going to have a steady flow of customers, and people renting out your properties, but not so good for people who wanted to actually own.
There's going to be opportunity, like there always is. In closing, before closing, I want to touch on one more thing, just because you said that. Every single meeting that I'm taking starts with either, have we hit the bottom, or is this a good time to buy? So we talked about the bottom. Don't want to hear the word. Let's get over it. Is this a good time to buy? Don't ask me. Look in the mirror. Is it a good time for you to buy? This is the time. So to anybody listening to this message, this is the time to take advantage of a market that came down 19.5% in average price over the last year, due to one factor being interest rates. Those interest rates are so punishing that if you were to finance conventional real estate right now, it's very difficult to make it work. So the people that I'm speaking to right now are the people who are sitting on hordes of cash in the account, hordes, hundreds and thousands of you, because I speak to you every day. If you, like, I'm not going to say my father-in-law and this, that, whatever, but if you're around 60 years old and you're a person who paid off their mortgage in 18 months in 1983 to 1987, because you're a saver and all these things, right now, there's a huge opportunity for every single one of you. Put that cash to work and buy real estate at 20% off. By the fall, that delta is going to be gone by about 10 to 15%. And it has nothing to do with interest rates. It has to do with people normalizing the market, getting back into it, and our extreme, unfortunate shortage of real estate. So please, if you feel that I'm speaking to you, simply reach out. We'll do a proper intake. We call that the Real Estate Action Plan. We have an entire division of our company dedicated to it. 3 people.
And how much does it cost to do a real estate action plan with us?
3 people, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, work inside this very coaching division. If you want to speak to me or Jas, we're at the office too. But we have 3 people who all they do is take your circumstances and find the ways that we can make your portfolio win. Now is the greatest time to buy with strings attached, meaning we have to figure out, is it creative financing? What are we doing? But it's the greatest time to buy now.
And I love that you wrapped it up with a real estate action plan, because as you were mentioning, look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, when we look at all the years that we've been doing this, we wanted to start to help people to figure out if it was a right time for them, and that's how we came out with the real estate action plan about 4 years ago, to be exact. Now,
yeah, because it's your individual action plan, not
100%,
ours.
right? It's to your point. I mean, it's the first step that you need to take. If you're watching right now and you're thinking, is it the right time to buy or not? Yes, the rewards. Big shout out to Kevin. I appreciate that. That's where we get started. We find out what you're trying to accomplish long term in terms of investing into real estate. And then we'll show you how we might be able to help, because the truth is we can't help everyone. And then if it's a match after that real estate action plan, which takes probably about 30 to 35 minutes of your time with our coaches, there's no cost for it. If there's a match, we'll move to the next step. We'll make some introductions for you. And then myself, Simeon, and the rest of our coaching division will kind of overwatch the process to make sure that you're being treated with white gloves. Sometimes it's all within our organization, and sometimes it's with our trusted partners that we've been working with now for coming up to a couple of decades, and a name like a Graybrook and an Equiton and our mortgage brokers and our real estate lawyers. We take that very, very seriously. And so if you've worked with any of our internal organization team members or external and you weren't happy, please send us an email to info@reccanada.com. That's info@reccanada.com, because we're adding and subtracting people on a minute-to-minute basis, depending on what kind of service they're providing to you as an REC insiders. We actually said we're going to cap this at 35 minutes. We're at 37 minutes and 13 seconds. You and I are getting better and better every single day we do this, brother.
Yeah, it's very nice to give ourselves compliments. It feels great.
It does, man. It does.
Listen, let's go Sunday. I actually have a fun Sunday lined up. The kids are ready. They're actually waiting. They're going to go to music. Then we're going to probably do a nice lunch, maybe a little consumer action. I don't know if we're going to stop anywhere, and maybe go by Square One in Mississauga. Don't know what we're doing, but I know it's going to be a day of an afternoon out. Maybe some family coming over tonight, my sister. By the way, I made the best bacalhau à brás Portuguese dish. Portuguese. It is codfish, salted codfish, with potato and egg and onions and garlic. It is the best I have ever had in my life, including at restaurants in Lisbon. I got the recipe from Lisbon. I was just there. I got the recipe from this very famous restaurant that I ate it at, and I copied it to the T. I was so proud of myself.
So I know what you're making me next time I come over.
It's worth you taking a rip bite to just grab a dish, dude. Anyways, I want to send love.
My day consists of construction. My day consists of some construction and some renovations at the office here. But to everybody, love you guys. Love. Take a look at our recordings. And for everybody in the GTA, go to reccanada.com/events. Come see us in person April 20th at our headquarters. See ya.
Goodbye, REC Nation.